I beg every empath woman to watch this, because the moment you get tired of giving is not the moment your heart dies. It is the moment your soul finally stops letting love look like self-abandonment. There comes a day when an empath woman does not cry the same way anymore. She still remembers the words, the silences, the disappointments, the nights she stayed awake, trying to understand people who never tried to understand her. But something inside her becomes quiet, not the quiet of weakness, quiet of a woman who has given so much that even her compassion has started asking for protection. That is the part people do not see. They think an empath woman gets tired because she is dramatic, because she is sensitive, because she expects too much, because she cannot handle people. But the truth is, she did handle people. She handled their pain, their moods, their excuses, their disappearing acts, their broken promises, their emotional hunger, their guilt, their silence, their need for her to always be the soft place. And she handled it until handling it started destroying her. This is what happens when an empath finally gets tired of giving. She does not become evil. She does not become heartless. She does not become cruel. She becomes honest. And honesty feels like betrayal to people who benefited from her self-abandonment. There is a woman sitting at the edge of her bed tonight, staring at her phone. A message has arrived from someone who always knows when to come back. Someone who knows how to sound wounded when access is slipping. Someone who knows how to say just enough to pull the old version of her forward. The old version would have answered fast. What happened? Are you okay? I'm here. Tell me everything. But this time, her thumb does not move. She looks at the screen, and for the first time, she feels something deeper than guilt. She feels exhaustion. Not the kind sleep fixes, the kind that comes from years of being emotionally available to people who were never emotionally responsible with her. She places the phone down. Her heart shakes a little, but her hand stays still. That is not coldness. That is the first sign that her giving has finally met a boundary. An empath woman often learns to give before she learns to receive. She gives attention before anyone asks. She gives forgiveness before accountability arrives. She gives understanding before the other person even deserves explanation. She gives emotional shelter to people who do not know how to stop bringing storms. She gives patience because she sees the wound behind the behavior. She gives another chance because she knows what it feels like to be misunderstood. The more she understands, the less people explain. The more she forgives, the less people change. The more she listens, the less people ask about her. The more she stays, the more people assume she will never leave. And one day she realizes something that breaks the spell. They loved the access her heart gave them. They loved that she was easy to return to after hurting her. They loved that she made room for their pain even while hiding her own. They loved that she could turn their cruelty into a story about their trauma. They loved that she would carry the emotional weight and call it compassion. They loved that she would feel guilty for needing what they gave freely to everyone else. But when she gets tired of giving, that access changes. And people feel it immediately. They may not know what to call it. They may say she changed. They may say she is acting different. They may say she is distant. They may say she is not as loving as before. They may say she is becoming hard. But what they really mean is she no longer bleeds on command. She no longer opens every time someone knocks with familiar pain. She no longer mistakes being needed for being loved. She no longer calls exhaustion loyalty. That is when her life begins to rearrange itself. There is another scene. She is in the kitchen making tea after a long day. The house is quiet. For years, quiet used to scare her because quiet felt like abandonment. Quiet felt like the space after someone pulled away. Quiet felt like punishment. Quiet felt like waiting for a reply, waiting for affection, waiting for proof that she still mattered. But this quiet is different. No one is draining her. No one is demanding that she become calm for them. No one is bringing chaos to her doorstep and calling it closeness. She stands there with the warm cup in her hands. And suddenly she realizes the silence is not empty. It is returning her to herself. She did not choose loneliness. She is afoot. And peace can feel strange to an empath woman who was trained to live inside emotional emergencies. At first, peace may feel boring. It may feel too quiet. It may make her wonder if something is wrong because nobody is pulling at her. But slowly her body starts to understand. Peace is not absence. Maybe this is what happens when an empath gets tired of giving. She starts noticing how much of her life was built around other people's needs. She notices how quickly she says yes, how often she apologizes when she has done nothing wrong, how easily guilt can make her change her mind, how many conversations leave her feeling emptied, how many relationships only work because she keeps making herself convenient. She starts asking questions she used to avoid. Do I actually want to help, or am I afraid of disappointing them? Do I feel loved here, or just needed? Do I feel safe, or just responsible? Am I giving from fullness, or am I giving because I do not know who I am when nobody needs me? That last question hurts, because many empath women have built an identity around being the one who gives, the understanding one, the patient one, the strong one, the forgiving one, the woman who can hold everyone's pain and still smile. The woman who can sense what others need before they say it. The woman who can make broken people feel safe while privately wondering why she never feels safe enough to fall apart. At there is a woman at dinner with someone she loves. Maybe it is a partner. Maybe it is a friend. Maybe it is family. She listens while they talk about their stress, their anger, their problems, their needs. She asks questions. She remembers details. She leans in with the kind of attention she wishes someone would give her. Then she tries to speak. You? The other person nods quickly, barely enters her pain, and turns the conversation back to themselves. She smiles, but inside something closes, not loudly, not with rage, just a small sacred door shutting, because that is how an empath gets tired. Not always from one betrayal, from thousands of tiny moments where she realizes she is present for everyone, but very few people are present with her. She remembers birthdays. She checks in. She notices tone shifts. She sends the long, thoughtful message. She listens between words. She gives people the benefit of the doubt. She explains their behavior with kindness. She makes room. She makes excuses. She makes peace. But who makes room for her? And who feels when her eyes are tired? Who asks, do you have capacity to hear this? Who says, you always hold me? But who is holding you? That which, because once an empath woman realizes she has become a home for people who never learned how to be a home for her, she cannot keep giving the same way. She may try at first. She may feel guilty for changing. She may tell herself, maybe I am becoming selfish. Maybe I should be more patient. Maybe they are just going through something. Maybe I need to be kinder. But her body knows the truth. Her body is tired of carrying what her heart keeps excusing. And the body always tells the truth eventually. It tells the truth through headaches, through heavy shoulders, through anxiety when certain names appear on the phone, through the way her stomach tightens before a conversation, through the way she feels relief when plans get canceled, through the way she is more peaceful alone than surrounded by people who claim to love her. That is not random. That is the nervous system saying, please stop calling this connection if it keeps costing us peace. This is the hidden psychology of the empath woman who gets tired of giving. She was not only giving love, she was giving regulation, she was giving emotional labor, she was giving safety, she was giving people a version of care she rarely received. She was giving from the wound of knowing what it feels like to be emotionally alone. You were not too much. You were just alone with too much for too long. And because she knows that pain, she tries to prevent others from feeling it. She becomes the listener because she knows what it is like to not be heard. She becomes forgiving because she knows what it feels like to be judged. She becomes gentle because she knows what harshness can do. She becomes available because she remembers needing someone who did not come. But the wound that makes her compassionate can also make her vulnerable to people who take without noticing the cost. That is why healing does not mean she stops giving. It means she stops giving from the place that still hopes someone will finally give back. She learns to give from choice, not fear, from fullness, not emptiness, from love, not the old terror of being abandoned. And that changes everything. There is a woman standing in the bathroom, looking in the mirror after crying quietly. She has wiped her face because she does not want anyone to know. She has done this before, cried alone, gathered herself, returned to the room, acted normal, continued giving. But this night feels different. She asks, when did I learn to leave myself this easily? That question enters like lightning because suddenly she sees it. She did not only lose energy, she lost parts of herself. She lost her voice in the name of peace, her rest in the name of loyalty, her honesty in the name of kindness, her standards in the name of understanding, her joy in the name of keeping people comfortable. She was not giving love anymore. She was giving herself away. And no relationship, friendship, family bond, or connection is worth losing the woman you were meant to protect. A man is not the prize if keeping him means losing the woman God gave you to protect. A friendship is not a blessing if it only survives when you are endlessly available. Family is not sacred if it demands your silence while calling it respect. Love is not love when it only works if you have no needs. This is the moment an empath woman begins to stop, not all at once. First, she stops answering immediately. Then she stops over-explaining. Then she stops saying yes when her body says no. Then she stops apologizing for needing rest. Then she stops giving full access to people who only show up when they want something. Then she stops mistaking emotional guilt for spiritual responsibility. And people notice. They notice because her energy was part of their comfort. They notice because her overgiving made their undergiving less visible. They notice because when the empath stops carrying the relationship suddenly reveals how little others were carrying. That is a painful discovery. But it is also liberating because the empath finally sees which connections were mutual and which ones were surviving on her emotional labor alone. There is a friend who stops calling when she stops being the crisis line. There is a man who becomes cold when she stops chasing. There is a family member who calls her selfish when she no longer sacrifices herself quietly. There is someone who says, "You changed," because they can no longer reach the part of her that used to obey guilt. And she may grieve that. She may sit alone and cry, not because she wants the old role back, but because she realizes how many people love the role more than they love the woman inside it. That grief is real. Let it be real. Do not rush it. Because when an empath gets tired of giving, she is not only losing people, she is losing an identity. She is losing the version of herself who felt valuable only when useful. She is losing the belief that love must be earned through exhaustion. She is losing the habit of measuring her goodness by how much pain she can tolerate. That loss hurts. But it also creates space for the woman she abandoned. She is not waiting to be rescued. She is rebuilding the woman she abandoned for everyone else. And that rebuilding begins with one sacred decision: I will not give from the parts of me that are begging for rest. The practical step every empath woman needs: before not for a minute, for a breath, ask yourself, do I have the capacity to give this without resenting it later? If the answer is no, your no is not cruelty, it is honesty. Ask, am I giving because I want to, or because I am afraid of who they will become if I do not? If the answer is fear, you are not giving freely. You are being emotionally pulled. Ask, does this person also care for me, or have I trained them to expect me without considering me? If the answer hurts, let it hurt. Good, then say the simple sentence: I care about you, but I do not have the capacity for this right now. Or, I cannot keep giving to a pattern that leaves me empty. Please say it without writing an essay. Say it without kneeling in apology. Say it without decorating the boundary until it disappears. The first time, guilt will come. Let it come. Guilt is not always truth. Sometimes guilt is the sound of an old role losing control. Sometimes guilt is the echo of being taught that your love is only real when it costs you. Sometimes guilt is what rises when a woman who has always abandoned herself finally stays. That guilt will not destroy you, but overgiving might. She turned a little reassurance, a little honesty, a little emotional presence. Hisig, and something inside her finally hears it. Not his words, his energy. It says, your needs are too much for the version of me that wants your love but not your emotional reality. That is when she stops giving wife-level devotion to someone who treats basic care like pressure. She does not hate men. She hates losing herself for love. And once she realizes that, she begins choosing differently. She stops loving potential more than patterns. She stops building futures out of apologies. She stops calling inconsistency complicated when it is simply unsafe. She stops making a home inside someone who only visits her emotionally when it is convenient. A shared bed can still feel colder than an empty room. And an empath woman who gets tired of giving eventually learns that being alone in peace is better than being together in emotional starvation. This does not mean she becomes bitter. It means she becomes honest about what her nervous system can no longer survive. There is a woman locking her door at night. She has finally chosen not to go where she will be drained. She has finally chosen not to answer the call that always becomes a 2-hour emotional storm. She has finally chosen not to explain why she is tired. She has finally chosen her own evening. The lock clicks. For a moment, she feels lonely. Then she feels something deeper beneath the loneliness. Relief, the kind of relief that tells the truth, the kind that says, this is what safety feels like when you stop confusing chaos with love. She sits down. Maybe she eats dinner alone. Maybe she watches the light move across the wall. Maybe she drinks water slowly. Maybe she cries a little because peace feels unfamiliar after years of being needed. But she stays with herself. And that is the moment she begins to heal, because for years she stayed with everyone else. She stays. Now she stays with herself. That is the real transformation, that she starts including herself in the love. She begins to ask, what would love look like if I gave it to me too? Maybe love would look like sleeping instead of answering. Maybe love would look like leaving the room instead of absorbing someone's disrespect. Maybe love would look like not defending her boundary to someone committed to crossing it. And maybe love would look like letting people be disappointed without making their disappointment her emergency. That last one is powerful. Let people be disappointed. Let them feel the absence of the access they misused. Let them learn that your softness was never guaranteed. Let them discover that the woman who once gave endlessly now has a door, and where she is hard to control. And control does not always look like domination. Sometimes it looks like guilt. Sometimes it looks like emotional dependence. Sometimes it looks like crisis. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like, I need you, from someone who never asked what you need. Sometimes it looks like people making your rest feel like betrayal. When she gets tired of giving, she begins to recognize these forms of control. She hears, You are not there for me anymore. And she translates, you are not abandoning yourself for me the same way. She hears, you changed. And she translates, your old lack of boundaries served me better. She hears, you are selfish. And she translates, your self-respect is interrupting my access. She hears, I thought you cared. And she translates, I thought your care meant unlimited availability. This is not bitterness. This is discernment. And discernment is what happens when empathy finally grows a spine. There is another micro scene. She is at a gathering, sitting in a room full of people, and everyone is laughing. On the outside, she looks present. On the inside, she feels invisible. Someone asks for her advice. Someone tells her a secret. Someone leans on her calm. Someone says, you always know what to say. But nobody asks why she has been quiet. Nobody asks why she looks tired. Nobody notices that the woman everyone calls strong has been silently carrying too much. For the first time, she does not feel honored by being needed. She feels awake. She realizes being needed has sometimes been the prettiest cage in her life, and she does not want the cage anymore. So she starts leaving rooms that only recognize her when she is useful. She starts choosing people who see her when she is silent, not just when she is helpful. She starts wanting love that does not require performance. She starts craving friendships where her pain is not an interruption. She starts desiring connection where she can be the woman, not the emotional service. That is how her circle changes. It gets smaller, cleaner, quieter. And yes, sometimes that smaller circle feels lonely at first, but a full room can still feel lonely when everyone knows how to take from you and no one knows how to hold you. So she chooses the quiet, not because she is empty, because she is learning to stop being filled with everyone else. There is a woman who misses the old connection, but not the old pain. She sits with that truth carefully. She does not lie to herself. She admits she misses the laughter, the good days, the late night talks, the feeling of being needed, the version of them that made her believe it could work. But she also remembers the whole story, the unanswered messages, the emotional heaviness, the way her body tightened, the way she cried quietly, the way she kept giving chances to someone who kept giving her reasons to need boundaries. She remembers the whole story now, not you. And remembering the whole story is how she protects herself. The old empath remembers the potential. The healed empath remembers the pattern. This is what happens when she finally gets tired of giving. Her memory becomes honest. She stops calling emotional crumbs effort. She stops mistaking relief for love. She stops saying, but they need me, and starts saying, but I need me too. That is, I need me too. No, not after every crisis is solved. Not after every person is comforted. Not after every man becomes healed. Not after every family member approves. Now, she needs herself now. And when she finally chooses herself, she may lose some people, but she will also lose the constant exhaustion of being everything to everyone. She will lose the dread of certain messages. She will lose the ache of waiting for people to care back. She will lose the identity that made her feel worthy only when she was useful. And in that loss, she will find something holy, herself, the woman under the helper, the woman under the soft place, the woman who wants to be loved without being consumed, the woman who wants to give without disappearing, the woman who wants to be kind without being controlled by guilt. The woman who wants peace more than approval. She does not become less loving. She becomes more truthful. And truth is the kindest thing she has ever given herself. There's another scene. Morning light enters her room. She wakes up after a night she did not spend overthinking someone else's mood. Her phone is beside her, but she does not reach for it immediately. For once, she checks in with herself before checking who needs her. How do I feel? And what would make today gentle? These questions sound simple, but to an empath woman who spent years living outward, they are revolutionary because she is finally turning her sensitivity inward. She is finally becoming the person she kept being for everyone else, gentle with herself, protective of herself, honest with herself. She is finally learning that her own heart is also someone she is responsible for loving. This is where giving becomes clean again because she will give in the future. Of course she will. She is an empath. Her heart is not dead. Her softness is not gone. Her tenderness has not vanished. But now her giving will come with truth. It will have a pulse, not a wound. It will have a boundary, not an open door. It will come from choice, not fear. She, but not at the cost of abandoning herself. She, but not at the cost of her dignity. She will still forgive, but not by pretending the pattern did not happen. She, but no longer available for pain. This is why people may not recognize her. They were used to her old giving without checking capacity, giving without asking for reciprocity, giving without expecting respect, giving without remembering herself. But now she gives differently. And those who truly love her will adjust. Those who only used her will accuse. The A person who loves you will not require your exhaustion as proof. A person who values you will not punish your rest. A person who respects you will not call your boundary betrayal. A person who sees you will not only appear when they need something from you. That is how she knows who belongs in her next chapter. And when the next chapter opens, she will not walk into it as the woman who gives until she disappears. She will walk into it as the woman who finally understands that love without self-respect becomes a slow form of grief. She may still want love, but not control. She may still feel lonely sometimes, but not desperate. She may still miss companionship, but not disrespect. She may still live alone for a season, but she is not empty. She may still be soft, but no longer available for pain. This is what happens when an empath finally gets tired of giving. She stops being an emotional sacrifice. She stops calling exhaustion love. She stops confusing access with intimacy. She stops treating her own needs like an inconvenience. She stops handing her peace to people who only know how to spend it. And the next time someone reaches for the version of her who used to give everything, they will meet a woman who still has a beautiful heart, but now has a locked door around it. I beg every empath woman to watch this, because the woman you become after you stop overgiving is not colder. She is clearer. She is not empty.